Folks, hello. Welcome to the Talking Crit TotalCon special edition with special guest Christopher Clark of Inner City Games. We're going to be here tonight, tomorrow night, Saturday night. Mike and I were here yesterday. We're going to bring you the best of virtual conning for virtual TotalCon.
I think when said virtual, I think virtual conning means something else, but yeah.
I'm afraid to even ask what it could mean besides what we just thought it maybe meant. Because now I feel dirty.
Page 54 of the rules has the listing for con artists. If you read that, it's not available yet. Never mind. It's still a Kickstarter. So, yeah.
Oh, wait a second. Is that like based on Ken Whitman, allegedly?
He's a specialty con. Oh, no, I don't want to. I don't want to break bad on poor Ken. No, would I do business with him again? Not today. But yeah, no, I don't.
Not today, not tomorrow.
Ken is a nice guy whose pool has no shallow end, period. Whenever he jumps in, he's over his head. It's that simple. You think after a while you've learned not to jump in. Some people don't learn very quickly. It's,
Well, Ken self-diagnosed himself with, concussion trauma syndrome, which can only be diagnosed after death via an autopsy. So I was always excited when he said that he was diagnosed with that.
Yeah, I suddenly have a desire to not see his kitchen. I don't know. Yeah.
Help me, Spock. Help me, Spock. Oh, God. So, we'll be talking about your Kickstarter in a little bit, but I have a question because I did read up on the Kickstarter and read how you got into designing Inner City back in the day. But how did you get into gaming in the first place?
I was introduced to a game called what was it? Alpha Omega, which was a simple board game in 1974 by my friend Charles R. Lewis in high school when I was a freshman. Now, that's an unusual story, too, but I'll keep it as brief as possible. I was an old country boy. I lived on a farmette out in northern Illinois. Went to school with kids that I knew for 8 years, first through eighth grade. And then the school dividing line changed for high school. And the kids across the street all went to one high school, and I went to a different one. So I didn't know anybody. So I was the new kid in the high school, and this guy came up and goes, "Hey, you want to play this board game? It's kind of cool." And I got into tabletop gaming that way. About 3 weeks later, he got this cool new mail order thing called Dungeons and Dragons, and we started playing it right away. Yeah, that was my introduction to Dungeons and Dragons.
Nice,
pretty early.
Yeah, well, we went to Gen Con 2 because we were so into the game. I want to say that one was at the. I want to say it was at the VFW hall. We went to one of them at the VFW hall, and then we actually showed up to run events at the first one at Parkside.
Really?
In my filing cabinet of old stuff you really should have thrown away years ago, there is a circular from Gen Con 6 at Parkside. We ran 72 events, our group of like 8 GMs. But we did it back then. This will really set you back a minute. In those days, TSR would charge $2 a ticket to play in an event. Okay.
Right.
If you ran events for them, $1 went to you and $1 went to TSR. So we would run 400 people through events and then take the rest of the con off, having basically attended the con for free because we made all our money running events.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's a racket, man.
It was kind of a racket. And so actually, the Kickstarter game got run as tournaments back in, 1978, 9 in that era because we could run more people through it and therefore we'd make more money.
Oh, Angelia popped in to say hello.
Oh, she's in Skeeter's stupid small print seminar. No, he's done that like 15 times, Angelia. Just blow him off.
I thought you said something else. But
no. He and Zach pull that small press seminar out like it's an old violin. They just Nah, just give it a hard time. But speaking of those two clowns, we're going to be on their show Monday, so I guess we
right. So we can't.
Yeah, we shouldn't piss them off too much. So we were trying to make them too angry.
Right. We got to abuse them. We'll have to abuse them on Monday when we show up.
Well,
But,
and unfortunately now with Gold Rush games and Flying Buffalo really not being around much anymore, I might actually be the oldest small press company still in existence.
Really?
I was actually shocked. Well, I wasn't really shocked. I mean, I knew you've been around a while, Chris, but I mean, I didn't know how long Intercity Games. I thought Intercity Games popped up about 82, 83 or so. I didn't know you were even older. You've been around even longer than that.
You mentioned Fuzzy Heroes earlier. I can't remember if we were on yet or not, but mentioned Fuzzy Heroes earlier.
Before we were on, yep.
It premiered at a con called TwinCon, which is held up in Minneapolis, as Puppy Pounders. That was back in 1988, and Puppy Pounders was my 14th game published, I want to say.
Wow.
But it cost a lot of money to publish games back then. We did something called the generic game in the I can't even remember when, sometime in the mid-'80s, but big box game, and instead of saying life on it, it had a black and green stripe that said game. And we actually got
I'd like to trademark game, please.
There were generic aisles back then, where everything in the aisle was generic, and people would shop in generic.
I remember. Generic mac and cheese was horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Flour, sugar, game, and it actually sold as a result of that little marketing concept. But
wow.
Trust me, for the first 1,000, we did not want to reprint. We let it go.
We were talking about that off camera about the print runs, because I was really one thing that's interesting was reading on your Kickstarter for Intercity Games. You go really fascinating history of just the whole Intercity Games history, but you talk about how many you had to print back then, which is just kind of what blows my mind, because you think about some of the small print runs that some of the independent people are able to put out now, so they can
print on demand.
Yeah, they can do stuff affordable, or they can just print. If they do a Kickstarter and they only sell 600 copies, they only have to print out 600 copies.
Right.
Y'all unfortunately were under different circumstances, weren't you?
I still have in old Fuzzy Hero stock in my basement warehouse, and it's a nice dry basement, so don't worry. But the basement warehouse has approximately $48,000 worth of old Fuzzy Hero stock in it. Now, it's not just Fuzzy Heroes. We actually wrote 6 or 7 books for that series. But it was funny when I want to say it was 1990 rolled around, and I looked in my basement. I saw $80,000 sitting on shelves. And anybody who knows business knows that's the worst place to have your money invested is in inventory. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And I thought there's got to be a better way. And we actually went out and purchased binders, printers, all of this kind of stuff. Now, the neat thing was it was just the start of the digital age. And they took school duplicators, like they would run your tests off and we'd all snip them. You remember?
Oh, yeah. The purple ink.
Put computer controls on them and actually made them to the point where they didn't have this blobby print. It was a nice, precise print, and you could run about a penny a page off a duplicator. So I still have our original Office duplicator. Still works. It's run like 12 million copies.
Wow.
But I think the only book we still make with it is Plastic Ships and Fuzzy Men. And we make about 100 of those a year, and that's about it. So if you need a duplicator, let me know.
If you wanted to duplicator, exactly how would that work? Just
if you wanted to
duplicator.
The whole difference between, for instance, a printer and a duplicator is the printer, of course, takes your file digitally and sprays it on there. Okay, a duplicator actually shoots a plate, just like the newspapers do when they're going to run the press.
Really? Okay.
But the duplicator plates are very cheap and very disposable. They're only good for about 10,000 copies, and then they degenerate. But if you're small press and you run 10,000 copies, you're probably, doing Deadlands or something.
You'll make your money back.
Yeah. So you've got a Kickstarter out now, Intercity Redo, and this is based on the very first RPG you published, correct? And I read it and I was like, yeah, I got to get this, because one thing I love is 70s cop shows. And when I was a kid, man, I used to get in trouble for watching stuff like Mannix and Cannon, because people don't realize how violent those shows were. If you catch them on, one of the old, TV channels, man, they're violent. They're so I loved it. As a kid, I'm watching all that stuff. Starsky and Hutch, all the classic ones there.
Well,
and
yeah,
I think Mannix was my favorite. I like Columbo a lot, but Mannix was my favorite because Mannix he just kicked ass, man. Mike Connors was busting heads all over the place. But
Beretta just screamed the 70s. And I don't think it took place in New York, but I always wanted to imagine it did because I could see those characters walking the streets of the South.
Well, it's funny that the way you brought it up, Mike. You play a criminal. Normally, you play a criminal. You can play good guys too. And in fact, in about a week and a half, on one of the other virtual cons, we're going to do let's play good guys because everybody wanted to see what it was like. Okay, be that as it may, there's only 4 things in the city that are illegal. There's only 4 crimes you can commit: murder, arson, theft, and sexual misconduct of any kind. Because Mr. No means no. Okay. But it's funny because if you just beat somebody up and take their money, you're guilty of theft, but you're not guilty of assault. Now, why is that? Well, because if you watch Mannix was always beating the heck out of his suspects. He never got arrested for it. Starsky and Hutch would walk into a bar and a huge bar fight would be going on, and they'd get the bar fight broken up. They'd say, "All right, we're not going to run you in." Okay, nobody ever got arrested for assault.
No, it was only the big 3. It was only the big 3. That was
it's not illegal. I mean,
So this is kind of a parody, but a loving parody of the 70s. What made those 70s cops and robbers shows great, and of course, I love the bad guys too. Dog Day Afternoon. I mean, you look at some of the bad guy movies and shows of the 60s.
We do have Kojak in there. And Husky and Stark.
Nice.
Filthy Harry, because Dirty Harry was dirty, but this guy's filthy. Okay. you got the old Johnny Dangerously Magnum that shoots through schools. It's absolutely hilarious because you think nothing of the fact that you're killing people because that just happened continuously in those old cop shows, and nobody ever really shed a tear unless it was the hero that got shot.
Right.
Mannix probably killed 2 bad guys an episode, and we're talking over a period of 2 or 3 years. And I don't think Mannix ever went before a board saying, "Look, you're a private detective, man. You can't be shooting guys on the street like that." He never had an issue, So I guess your game has that kind of zeitgeist. Say, "Hey, this thing just happens. I mean, people just get shot."
It's the old Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yes, I killed a lot of people, but they were all bad.
So it's coming out. It looks like, and Eric and I are both in. We saw it the other day. We both in for $20 on that one. And so, but it looks fun. And so this is the kind of, I guess, the deluxe version because you had the inner city rules and you had 3 kind of add-on rule books.
Well, it was popular enough that we did these 3 little add-on rule books that I don't know. I don't want to take credit for it. If you put them all together, they form one picture. Okay. And I don't take credit for that. I borrowed that from Rich Tucholka from TriTac Games, okay, with his FTL series. But the idea was that then when we sold them in retail, you'd get cover out display rather than spine out display, which everybody would just go on by and not see. But I wanted to try and make it so that everything was in one place and you didn't have to flip between pages all over the place because nothing annoys me worse than for instance, I enjoy playing Rollmaster. Have you ever played Rollmaster? It's Master.
Yes. It works best on.
The entry charts are great. If you said you have an extra hour to roll and have your character.
Play it on Fantasy Grounds too, and have the integrated charts into your interface. It's great, but otherwise, it's a long slog of a system.
It's a bit of a task. Yes.
Yeah,
and I wanted to try and get it out. I'm better at writing games than I was in 1978. I am. That's not a really high bar, so don't get too excited.
Well, so it looks like this game it's pretty close to funding here. I'm about $140 away from funding, but I'm really excited about it. I love. There was a game that came out of. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Eric.
Sorry, I'm just looking at the Gnarly's Angels picture that's right on the screen right now. And I swear to God, if that doesn't make you want to buy this game,
those
nothing will.
Those crime-fighting grannies are in the game, as well as
Oh,
the B
God.
Squad, which I don't think you do have a picture of. The B Squad are the guys who show up in the van and take 100,000 shots at the enemies, but no one ever gets hit.
So the A-Team, you got an A-Team parody in there too.
A-Team,
Great.
of course,
Okay.
would be something
B
less than a
Squad.
parody. That would be infringement. So no, it's the B Squad. But yeah,
Okay. No, that's with Mr. Z.
Yeah, the A Squad. The A-Team was great too because you're right, because they had automatic weapons, yet nobody ever really got
and
hurt.
they
The cars would roll 4 or 5
nobody-
times, and everybody's like crawls out, and they're like, "Oh man,
okay, I surrender.
yeah." Like nobody got hit with shrapnel. Come on, nobody got a bullet anywhere. But yeah, that's I'm excited. I love. I don't know if you're familiar with Spirit of '76, which is a fun little role playing game that came out a few years ago, and it was based on, I guess, I don't know, kind of the black exploitation movies of the time, plus a lot of the '70s type stuff. That was a fun game too. So I'm going to put this alongside of that and have I'm going to have a '70s game night where we're going to.
I don't know if you noticed, Eric, when you saw the bar picture, the big advertisement in the bar is drink booze. So it's not a terribly serious game. By the same token, people often go through more than one character on their first outing. Sometimes more than 5 characters on their first outing.
It is an eye chart. That's
things
good.
happen. Yeah, things happen.
Well, we have a rule in there that if you die with your initial character, a unknown brother shows up. Your evil twin shows up. As long as the rest of the party does not take the turn in between to loot your body. Because, yes, those people that you thought you were running the streets with actually aren't your friends and will loot your body if it means making a level. So, yeah.
That happens too.
That happens.
Yeah. Dude, I think I'm in for 24 because I wanted the complete starter set.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
Well, I'm always in for at least 20 on a fun game like that because I what can I say? I love the '70s. I was a kid in the '70s. Well, we're about the same age, Chris. I think you're a year older than me. I just turned 58, so we're
right. You're younger than you. I don't turn 58.
Whoa, hold on. I'm actually older than some. Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
okay. 1962.
Wow. So, but yeah, so I in the '70s is my jam. Anything in the '70s, I'm up for. So yeah, that's I was excited when I read that. I don't think I ever. Now you have what 20 or 30 mini games, because I know when you come to North Texas,
27,
you have a gigantic display of all these games, and so I always look at that and I think one thing I always think. So how do you get all these ideas for games? Because most people just maybe have 1 or 2 games in them, and that's it. And that's it. They do it, but you've got a lot of ideas.
If you're a game designer, it's what you do. That's like how do you keep fixing cars, Mr. Auto Mechanic? It's what they do. It's funny. Best storyteller I ever knew was Gary. Best writer I ever knew, I think, was Frank. But there are so many people who have a little bit more of this and a little bit more of that. I mean, I have so many favorites in the industry, and all of them are like that. Jeff Talanian and Zeb, and all of those guys just constantly come up with the stuff. And you'd laugh. I have 5 things on my to-do list right now that are backed up.
Wow.
I have them organized so that one's featured on the other. But yeah.
I've got literally 2 ideas I want to do one day. I got two. Seriously, I have 2 things I want to do. That's it. I don't have any more ideas. I can't think of anything else. That's it. So once I'll get my 2 ideas out there someday. It's just amazing. You have so many games out there.
I'm actually finishing up the Gary Con tournament module, which, by the way, they'll be fighting Nazis this time because they wanted to. So
hey, why not? Okay. Nazis are always good to beat up. So beat up Nazis is great. Yeah.
We're finishing that one up while we're doing the Kickstarter, because otherwise life is boring or something.
Right. I thought Nazis were trademarked by TSR. Do you get permission from Wizards of the Coast to?
Oh, I love that story.
Fight Nazis?
What a great story.
I don't know. Maybe.
Well, that was a kind of a false story that circulated in the 90s, I think, based on the 80s. Because what was the real story behind that, Eric? They tried to trademark Nazis because it was part of the Indiana Jones game, and so they sent in a trademark for Nazis. and so they got the rep that, man, these guys are so mercenary. They even tried to trademark the name Nazis. So that was kind of a
Actually, Luke and Turbo, who I think you both know, okay, came to me and they said, you know what? Everybody loves killing Nazis. Let's get out of the desert with this one and let's kill some Nazis. And I was like, okay. That's a no-brainer.
You can't go wrong, yeah.
Can't go wrong on that one.
And unlike orcs, Nazis can be evil too. They're not misunderstood at all. You just kill them. There's no misunderstanding.
Exactly.
Like, wait, are you an orc with feelings, or are you one of the old school orcs? Before I kill you, I need to know what's going on here.
Are you an orc? Yes, I am. My name is Woke. Ooh.
Oh boy, we won't even get to that tonight. We love Wizards of the Coast because every other week they do something really, really dumb, and Eric and I get to talk about it on our show. So we God bless them for keeping up just doing something weird every couple weeks.
And we get to talk about Wizards of the Coast even when one of their people is watching us live, which is kind of like, oh shit.
Yeah, Kurt Gould's in here sometimes. We like to give him a hard time too. So
one of them is watching us live. I don't know these guys.
Yeah, come on. We might want to work for WotC someday. I don't know what these guys are talking about. I have no clue. No clue. Well, so I don't think I met you, Chris, until you actually came to North Texas. I knew you from online, but I don't think I met you until you actually came. And one of the reasons you came, so there was a company named Eldritch Ent that was around for a few years. It was you, Tim, Jim, and Frank.
Yep.
And so
Frank was
actually Harold originally too, but Harold didn't really ever do anything, so he kind of dropped out.
So they the first year everybody wrote something, and they came to the con. They didn't bring any material. They didn't bring anything to sell, and so we're like, okay, do y'all have any Eldritch Ent stuff? Like, no. So the next year we got Chris to come, so Chris could actually bring stuff from Eldritch Ent to sell.
They were not okay. With all due respect for Jim and Frank and Tim, one of the three of them were going to pack up stuff and send it to the show.
True, that is true.
Take it in their luggage. They were like, "No, we don't do that. We're the talents here." Okay.
Yeah, but you got talent, but you also need the guy that's going to haul the boxes. You can't just have the talent. So
and then of course Douglas was shocked because he's like, "You're driving down?" I said, "Yeah." Well, why? Oh, because I'm going to bring the company. No, the company only has like 8 things out now, Chris. I said, yeah, but I have another company. So he had the same attitude. How do you run 2 companies at once? And Frank's running Eldritch. It's okay. Yeah.
Well, the drive now. That's another thing about you too, Chris, is that you make the drive every year with your wife and sometimes your daughter, and I've made the drive many times. Zach and I have made the drive. Now we do a 2-day affair. We'll stop at Kansas City the first night, either there or back, and then we that's kind of the middle point for us. But I don't think it's a bad drive at all. And people are just like, you drive here? That's crazy. But it's not too bad now at all. As you break it up to 2 days, it's actually quite a pleasant drive.
And you're coming up in Doug's Hotel on Wheels, right?
Because Zach and I, we usually rent. No, yeah, that's right. Because Doug has this gigantic. Is that an Explorer? What? I mean, it's like you don't even feel like you're driving. You just sit there and you just let.
We're all outside.
You're doing this. You drive with one finger. Yeah.
Wait a second. Yeah, they're coming.
No, Zach and I usually rent a pretty nice car when we go up there and to Gary Con or Gamehole Con. So, but it's pretty. We get something pretty nice. We usually try to get heated seats because that's the one luxury we allow ourselves is because it's so freaking cold up there. But it really is a beautiful drive, and I'm surprised more people don't make the drive. I mean, I know when you're older, sometimes it's tougher to drive, but you're pretty much a gearhead though, right, Chris?
Oh, yeah.
You like driving. You like cars. I love driving too. But I'm not a gearhead. I have always just drove a car that ran, even when I was a kid. I just never got into it. So I'm always fascinated by somebody that's just really into cars. Now, where did you start getting interested in cars?
1977, when I was first able to drive, my Pontiac Le Mans blew a power steering house. and I had the garage fix it, and it was $80. And I went and I was like, $80 because that was a lot of money back then.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
And I walked into a parts store and found out the part cost $19. So now I'm getting a little upset, right? And all of a sudden my power steering starts making noise again, and I have no idea what the noise is, but I get in there and look, and cars that old, you can intuitively figure out how they worked, okay? At least from my perspective. And the guy didn't, you have to bleed the line when you put it in. Didn't bleed the line. He just hooked it up and said, here, you're fixed. And I thought to myself, I could have done this wrong 3 times and still saved money, with the 4th time having been the right way. And I started doing car work, and I just started fixing my own car.
So what do you own now? I know you have a few, right?
Well, you remember the old white van that always used to come down in North Texas? Yeah, it's still in my driveway because they made a lot of changes between one engine and the other, and I'm putting a new engine in it. But it's still not rusty, so I have 2 mid-60s Barracudas in my garage.
Barracuda is such a sweet.
And I'm gonna. I have to. They're completely empty. There's no drivetrain of any kind in them, so it's bottom up. But on the bright side, I can update them because I like things like front disc brakes. Mid-60s Barracuda has 4-wheel drums, which are horrible. No, it's going to have a slightly more modern front end that I'll take out of a Dart or an Aspen or something and just slide it in there. But you gotta know a little bit more about what you're doing. But yeah, it's not as difficult as it sounds.
Now, was the Barracuda muscle car? Was that considered a muscle car back then or not? I can't remember.
It was originally in the mid-60s. The Barracuda was produced. It looks like a Valiant, actually, and it was produced to be competition for the Mustang. Which it really wasn't, by the way. The Mustangs were better. They weren't better built, but they were better cars. Anyway, they were cheap. I got them for $1,000 for a pair of them. So
nice. So that's your project then, is get those babies running. And
what I want to bring down to Texas, I want to try and shoehorn. I've got my old drag race motor in my garage on a stand. It has been there for 10 years. It's a 7.6 liter, and I want to see if I can shoehorn that into that cute little Barracuda. Should become a death box at that point. Yeah. Should be go ahead, drive this on the road, take your life in your hands, death box. Yeah.
So my uncle, I had Uncle Richard, who was my dad's next oldest brother, and he loved muscle cars, and he stopped buying them when he wrecked like his 5th because they're muscle cars. The whole point of muscle cars is they have a really powerful engine in there. Oh yeah. If you don't know what you're doing, you will wreck your car. And so yeah, he had about 5 between the years about 68 to 72 that he just absolutely trashed. Luckily he didn't die, but yeah, it was. He had some really nice cars. He had a Barracuda. He had a Mustang. He had a what's the bullet car? He had a GT. Yeah. He had some really nice cars. Unfortunately, none of them lasted longer than a year.
I just got rid of my early 70s Charger because it got so rusty that I leaned against the side of it and kept going. And I thought, I'm not going to fix this anymore.
That's too bad. Yeah, Chargers are beautiful cars too.
We got lots of money just for the parts that were still good. So,
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that was, and I never paid big money for these. These were always just used cars that we had.
Do you ever have that dream? Because collectors always have that dream. You walk into somebody's garage sale and there's a whole bunch of orange B3s or something. So do you ever have that dream that you go to somebody's garage, they go, I got this old car, I just want to get rid of, and they roll it up and there's just like, oh my gosh, like a
actually I had that reality.
Oh yeah, well tell us that story then. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, you want to laugh? I had a guy when we still lived in Illinois, outside my farm. He's coming down the road. You can hear him coming. Bang, 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 which to a car person, they know means it's got a rod knock. Okay. Really loud rod knock. And he parks out in front, and it's a 1968 Barracuda. And he walks up to the door and he goes, I just bought this thing. For $20, I'd get rid of it today. And I told him, I said, here you go. He goes, you can hear that engine, can't you? I said, you see that barn back there? Yeah. There's about 14 of those engines in it. I'm okay. And he sold me his Barracuda for $20.
Oh, wow.
Here's the funny part. I went down to the barn. I got a gas can. I poured gas into his blown up engine. Blown up. One of the rods is sticking out the side of the engine. There's a hole this big inside the engine. And parts of the engine are sticking out. Hit the key. It started up. I drove it down to the barn.
Nice.
Who says 8 cylinders? 7's plenty.
Well, somebody has a question here. It looks like Mike Gross is there.
Yeah, and Mike Ross is not just a regular, but he's done some editing for me. So, by the way, if anybody's looking for somebody who's a great games editor and knows RPGs, Mike was probably your man.
Yeah,
Yep.
Mike, your
Great
name rings
guy.
a bell. I can't put a face to the name right now mentally.
I'll help you on that one. He was working with Gary before Jeff came into the project. Mike's wife at the time had cancer, and he had to back out of the project, and she wound up deceasing. But he was working with Gary on was it Castle?
Guess
Zagig?
it's a gig, yeah.
Yes.
Zagig, okay. And
Yes.
Zagig actually was percolating at roughly the same time as Legendary Adventure, as I remember. So, because LA, and by the way, hi, Mike. Good to hear from you. LA started in 99. I want to say we started it up. Gary came to me saying he couldn't find investors willing to back his project. How if he formed a partnership with me, what would we need to launch his first 3 core books? And I looked at that point, I had all the equipment I told you about earlier. I had the duplicator, I had the binder, and I said, well, if you only want to print a couple hundred copies, we can do this for like $4,000, including artwork and everything. Okay. Yep. Sorry, Mike, that was for you. And he immediately said, "Oh, get your wife to do some paperwork, and we'll sign paperwork off." One of the reasons that, and I know it's not an industry secret, that there's a little bit of friction between, let's just say, his survivors of a used to be married to him kind.
Oh, no problem. We talk about that a lot on our show. Yep. So yes.
It was because it was a partnership. It wasn't an LLC. It wasn't a sole proprietorship where I worked for Gary or Gary worked for me. It was a partnership. So we both owned everything that came out of LA. Now, I don't claim any rights to LA, so don't get me wrong. That's entirely Gary. But some of the stuff we did together, I claim some rights to. Anyway, like the entire Chronicles of the Legendary Earth. Because that's not all Gary. Gary gave me one book, and I said, this reads like an encyclopedia, Gary. And by the way, he was a regular guy. You could talk to him like that. He got a little upset. And I said, no, watch. I said, I'm going to do the first book for you. I said, we're going to break this out into a series of 5 books, and we're going to put a little more meat with the potatoes. And so we put in rumors and legends, and we put in the so-and-so king has eyes for the such-and-such queen of so-and-so, and all of these politics and things. And he read the first Legendary Earth book and said, you're right. I like this a lot better. Don't just send them to press. Let me see them first, but go ahead and do your thing. So there were actually supposed to be 5 Legendary Earth books. I think we got 3 of them into print before the whole thing blew up. So,
and unfortunately, because they're connected to Gary's name, they're all out of print indefinitely, I guess.
Not necessarily indefinitely, but I'm not going to give them away, and they don't want to pay me for them.
So. No, I hear you. Well, you should. Yeah. You should own your writing. So yes.
Yeah, I mean. And those were good books. I actually owned the core 3, and then I owned a box set from Troll Lords.
Okay.
And
did you get the Legendary Light?
No.
Because I thought the box set, did it have the Moon Slaves adventure in it?
You know, I have 2 box sets, and one did not come with the adventure. One did.
I
got him on eBay, so who knows?
Yeah, well, and I gave the rights to the Troll Lords, but I wrote that adventure.
Oh, really? Because
there weren't a ton of people writing in LA at the time, so yeah. And Troll Lords and I get along great, which is why, for instance, Warden went through Troll Lords, because I've known Steve forever. He's a salt of the earth kind of guy. So.
Yeah, that was another recent project. That was the latest version of the Warden. That was actually one that I was busy with things going on. I don't know if I backed that one, but that was that was you, Jim. Who else was on that project? That was
pretty much Jim and I. They redid the layout because I'm not a layout guy. They're redoing a bunch of the art because I'm really not an art guy. But yeah, Jim and I basically finished the book with excuse me, some significant editing work done. Especially, I want to give a shout out to Scott. No, Scott that edits all the stuff with us.
Scott Swift?
No.
Scott.
I'm sorry. No. Scott. I want to say Macintosh, but that's not right. Give me 1 second and I will look.
Apple. Macintosh.
Now you're just being silly.
Yes. I'm trying. Well,
Pilgrim, Scott Pilgrim. No, wait, that's different.
That's a different one. Yeah, that's a different one.
There's a lot of Scott.
Well, when's that supposed to be finally out? The latest.
They haven't shipped it yet. And don't worry, I don't have my copy. I have the copy that I did ahead of time to show everybody that just in case something like a protracted release on it happened, it wasn't Jim and I who hadn't done the work. That's kind of why that original book. And I know Doug showed you his. Mm-hmm. Doug has that original with just the weird looking ship on the cover.
Right.
But I sent those out just so that everybody would know that we'd done our thing. Where are the Scott edits?
Well, I'm a huge Metamorphosis South fan, huge Gamma World fan. So I'll end up at some point purchasing that from somebody.
I have no doubt too that the layout when it's done is going to be worth the wait. But yeah, it was. You know what? I can look right there.
My last purchase of Gamma or Metamorphosis South was Epsilon City, and I got it. It's a gigantic book, and then I realized I'm never going to use this. It was an aspirational purchase. I put it on my shelf. It looks great. I'm like, maybe I should lay off the Metamorphosis South for a while because I
have a room full of that. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
You'll think it's funny because it all started because I took Jim to one side. Now I'm sure you guys have played Gamma World, Metamorphosis Alpha. Most people prefer Gamma World. I'm one of the few that preferred Metamorphosis Alpha, and I will explain myself. Metamorphosis Alpha had parameters to it. In other words, it wasn't a universe expansive area to explore. It had actual walls around the universe you could explore. And so as a GM, you were in better control of the world than you are in Gamma World. But I don't think MA ever took off, and I told this to Jim, because they never supported it.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Well, how do you support something like that? I said, that's a no-brainer. The center of the entire game is the ship. Why didn't you guys ever do the ship? Scott McKinley.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. There we go.
Oh, Scott McKinley. Yeah, I know you're talking about. Yep.
Yeah, and he is the most incredible editor I work with, honest to gosh. And I have no qualifiers to put on that. Just flat out, yeah, he's the best. Be that as it may, I said to Jim, if you guys had just done even one level of the ship and put it out there, this game would have sold so much better. Oh, Chris, I don't think you understand Metamorphosis Alpha fans very well. So we do the book mostly as my way of showing Jim that I knew what I was talking about. It was all just a fight between Jim and I. And then, and a book resulted. A massive whale-killing 700-plus page book, 682.
Well, I'll tell you something, Chris. I used to play Metamorphosis Alpha with Gamma World rules, and so I have a story when I got the original when the reprint came out of Goodman Games of Metamorphosis Alpha. I thought it'd be fun to run a game using the original rules.
Right.
And so I'm sitting there, and I have this scenario I always run. It's a Metamorphosis Alpha scenario. I've been running it for years, and it's one of those coming of age scenarios. And you have to go here and do this, and you get mutated, and all those things happen. So but I always used to run it with Gamma World rules. So I pull out the Metamorphosis Alpha rules, and I'm running it, and I get to a point, and I'm like, wait a second, and I look. And the values of so basically everything is in the Metamorphosis Alpha rules is something versus something else. That's how the rules go. It's a chart where you use this DC versus this AC and you do it.
Opposed roles, yes.
Yeah, the monsters had no DCs, and I was like, so I call a friend of mine up, Jim Wampler, and I say, I know you've played Metamorphosis Alpha before. Did you notice that he goes, yeah, you found the flaw in the game. It's like, what? It's like, yeah, it originally came out and they forgot to put DCs for all the monsters. He said, just wing it. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it. So there's no DCs of any of the monsters Metamorphosis Alpha, which is funny. But yeah, I used to run Metamorphosis Alpha using Gamma World rules because I agree with you. I love the constrainment of actually being in the ship, and you have this world that's like whatever miles by whatever miles, and that's your whole world. And then you
either better save it or get off of it. Those are your two options. There's nothing in between. If you don't save it, it's going to crash into a sun, or it's going to die from lack of oxygen or something. Okay,
Yeah,
so
and there's so much lore in there. There's so much lore because you start out. It depends on how your party starts out. There's so many great ways to start out. You could be people that are frozen in cryogenic, and then you wake up and you have to save the ship. I used to start out the scenario I started out with. You lived in a valley, and that's where you'd always come from. But there was a creation myth that a long time ago you'd come through a path through the mountains hundreds of years earlier, and your people had settled there, and that was basically between decks. You'd become between decks, but you've forgotten all that. And then, but there's tons of different ways to begin it, which is great. I mean, no two scenarios are ever alike in Gamorrean, which is
one of the things I've been yelled at, and people were expecting it, and they're like, "Do you finally solve the mystery of what happened to the ship?" I said, "Oh no." What? I said, we offer 4 different possible solutions so that whatever way you've been playing the game for the last 20 years, you don't have to change it. But there are 4 sets of evidence that suggest that this guy was right. It was a wave of radiation. No, it was this guy. It was a dimensional rift. No, it was this guy, and you run into people on the ship that think they caused it. And have been alive for the last 600 years as a result. And I hate myself, but I can't die. And there's all sorts of fun stuff like that in there. Yeah.
Well, I've always loved playing out. I wish it was a more popular game because, like you said, I agree with you, Chris. I think one of the issues with it was when it first came out, it was not supported. It was never supported. So rather than sit there and go, "Gosh, I got to create all these levels for this, dungeon," it would have been if TSR decided, you know what, we're not going to really release any dungeon modules. You can figure that out. We're just going to release rules and rule supplements. Well, one of the huge successes early TSR was the dungeons, because people didn't want to write their own dungeons. They didn't know how to do it. And if I remember correctly, first of all, Gary thought it was a dumb idea because that's why We Warriors published the first 2 or 3, because he was like, who wants to run a dungeon somebody else writes? And then
write your own. That's what for.
Yeah. And once We Warriors Palace of Empire Queen went through its like 15th printing or whatever, he's like, whoa, hold on a second. There's a little money in here because apparently people are buying dungeons.
When he released LA, he did not want to write dungeons for it.
Really?
Wow, interesting.
There's a number of dungeons out under LA. I wrote about half of them, but none are written by Gary. I got him to do one. If you got the author's editions or the premier editions of the first 3 core rule books, there is one adventure in the back of those 3 books. It's in 3 parts. Okay. That Gary wrote. That's a Gary adventure. That's the only adventure he ever published for his own system.
Wow. It's just interesting because I look at adventures as that's how you, rather than reading the rules, I like to sometimes just pick up a scenario because that's how you learn how the rules run, by reading the adventures. And and sometimes that gives you a heads up when you read the rules. You kind of got a head start, like, okay, well, this is what this means, and this is how they stat monsters or stat weapons. So I think that's very essential. And I think if they'd have come out with, okay, we're going to do a level of Metamorph South, a level a year or something, or level every 2 levels a year, I think that would have been hugely successful.
And if you just sit down and do it, it only takes about 2 years to, do all 17 level. Oh, sorry.
Talking from experience, are we?
That is how long it took. Yes.
Well, you'd laugh. We had the first 2 weeks. We had all these arguments from Jim and I. Jim, you can't just have the engines on one end of the ship. Why not? Because every time you turn, the ship will snap in half. It's 40 miles long. Oh, well, no, you need to put thrusters all around the hull, all over the place, just like they are in the shuttle. Little things that shoot out from different parts of the ship to correct your attitude. You can put a drive back there, but you can't have it turn from the rear. No. Okay. But you can't build it on the Earth, Jim. It has to be built in space.
Right.
Why? Because otherwise, when it takes off, it will cause worldwide devastation. It's 40 miles
huge,
by 20
but
miles.
it's gigantic.
Yes. Something smaller than that killed all the dinosaurs. We had a number of conversations. I couldn't get him to. We had to leave the anti-gravity in there. And, of course, there's no scientific way to explain anti-gravity, at least yet. So we had to make that up. But believe it or not, there's an explanation of faux physics of how anti-gravity even works in that book. So,
well, you just have to make it sound good. It doesn't have to be real science.
I drew a little atomic diagram and showed you what the gravitons were and all. Yeah, it's cute. Anyway.
So one of the favorite things about Metamorphosis Alpha was I think that was the first place I ran across the flow chart where
figuring things out.
Oh yeah, you find something and start rolling on the flow chart. And so you either figured out how to work that laser pistol, or you blew you shot a bullet through
you're now
your friend's eye
because your right arm is missing. Yeah.
Yes. Or your friend. So when somebody's trying out a laser, everybody else in the party leaves and goes like really far away because, one of the results is always like the guy next to you gets his, you shoot a needle gun through his brain. So those were great. Love the flow charts too. Those were classic.
Well, I was always a huge Metamorphosis Alpha fan, and because they didn't do it, I had from my high school days a D-ring binder that had all 17 levels. And no, I didn't use any of that. I look back and I was like, oh my God, this is terrible stuff. Oh my God, So we did a little better job than that, but yeah. And it's funny. It's about, to me, especially in adventures, especially when that's a source book, but it's filled. Believe it or not, it's a source book filled with probably 200 ready-to-play adventures and another 2,000 adventure springboards that you can write the adventure for.
Oh, wow, yeah.
But the most important thing in any of that is wondering, well, why is it like that? Okay, great. You've got a mutated badger on the shore of this river. Why doesn't he walk away when you shoot lasers at him? Why does he want to stay and fight? What is it that keeps a mutated badger on the edge of a river? And it's not hard to put reasons behind it. Well, because his girlfriend lives at the hole just down the river, and she's going to come by when you're shooting at her boyfriend and not be happy about it either.
Right.
So, if you don't put whys in there, to me, it's a monster and treasure list. And yeah, any idiot can do a monster. There are 9 different auto-generating monster and treasure lists already available on the internet for free.
Right.
But they don't give you whys. They give you just monsters and treasures.
So has everybody here seen the movie Pandorum? Eric, have you seen that?
Excellent film.
Yeah, that's
no. But fill me in.
It's Metamorphosis Alpha. It basically.
Oh, okay.
Well, I kind of spoiled the whole movie for you by just telling you that, unfortunately. But yes, it is a.
It's a great movie. Wonderful ending part.
No, great movie. It came out about 2008, 2009. It's been out for a while. I had heard about it because somebody said they ripped off Jim Ward, and then Jim Ward very graciously said no because I ripped off Nonstop or whatever.
Yeah,
whatever.
I wouldn't get that far.
Yeah, he was like, I cribbed ideas from movies, so books that I read, so it wasn't like they just stole from me. But yes, it's probably the best Metamorphosis Alpha movie we'll ever get. So give yourself a time when you can see that, rent that, Derek, and watch it. It's very good. Very good.
There was a Pandorum 2.
I didn't know that. Now I've never seen Pandorum 2. Pandorum 1's great. It's got some pretty good name actors in it too.
Quaid?
Yeah, Dennis Quaid was in it. Ben Foster, I think, is the other main character, the 2 main characters. But it's about a generation ship and things that happen to it. And a guy gets woken up early.
It's really cool,
it's very good, very very good, very well written movie, very fun, and it's very much the spirit of Metamorphosis Alpha. So.
And speaking of which, Jim and I have one last. You remember the whole Dark series from Eldritch, right? Dark Outpost, Dark Visitor.
Yeah. Those are very good. I love
those. We have one more Dark that is number 3 of my 5 on the list right now.
So those are really good.
I want to do.
I don't remember how many there were, Chris, but those were great for any science fiction game.
Yes,
really.
Well, and they were written that way.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm not going to presuppose that they're always great, but yeah, they were written to be multi-platform adventures. No, the one that's left is Dark Legacy, and it's about why scout ships just every once in a while disappear when they're doing surface scans of the Dark Colony, and they just disappear from radar and are never heard from again. And Fleet, of course, thinks that someone's stealing them, and so they hire you to figure out what's going on. Yes, Dark Legacy, soon to a theater near you or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I played a game at a convention once, and it was sci-fi, and I realized about halfway through it was Dark Outpost. I'm like, this sounds so familiar. I'm like, oh, it's Dark. Didn't use the plot, but he used the floor plans. Everything was so they're useful when it comes to using them for a science fiction type role playing game. Very very useful for anything like that.
John just mentioned in the comments that T1 was my favorite of the early adventure modules because it is so loaded with reasons why things are the way they are. At the time, I think it's a masterpiece of its time. I could play T1 15 times and play it different every time.
Well, we talk
Village
about
of Hamlet.
one of the things we talk about, Eric and I, we talked about actually yesterday too, was the touchstones in our hobby, and that's back when you had touchstones because there was so few releases of anything. When you went to a convention, I mean, we just told the story 24 hours ago. You went to a convention, you go, hey, what happened to you in Tomb of Horrors? Everybody knew what you're talking about. Everybody played Tomb of Horrors. Everybody knew. Village of Hamlet. Did y'all kill all the villagers there? And did you fight the druid? Oh yeah, we did that. We all did that. So everybody knows that. And nowadays, there's just so much product out there. You don't have those touchstones of the hobby. You don't have. Everybody doesn't say, well, I played this because there's just too much out there.
No one will ever play all of the different stories in the Warden. There isn't time in a lifetime.
There you go.
That's good. That's kind of like, so Mega Dungeon in Space is what we're looking at. That's awesome.
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much. Although it is meant that you can just flip it open and start playing. You don't have to prep. There's about 200 of those adventures that are just nested in there. Just thumb through the pages till you get to a spot where it's like, oh yeah, this reads like an adventure. It must be.
Oh, well, I'm definitely going to pick that up eventually. I'm going to get my Metamorphosis Alpha campaign roll. I ran Mike and Liz Stewart and a couple other people through my beginning scenario, and they enjoyed it enough to where I'm like, I need to bring this to convention and run this. So I'll get it, Mike. I don't know about that, but
people that are afraid to publish.
Jim might beat me up because I think he owns all the rights to Metamorphosis Alpha. Jim owns all the rights to Metamorphosis Alpha. I can't publish any Metamorphosis Alpha stuff. He'd take me out behind the woodshed.
I'm not even going to go there. Shadtar brings up a point. When people say now they play D&D, they're playing RPGs. It's the Kleenex. It's the Xerox.
It's become a generic term for a role-playing game, which is really interesting. Yeah, it's Xerox. Yeah, because Xerox is a product name, but yet it's also Kleenex.
But it's also public domain now. Yeah.
Right. So D&D does feel and you're right, Eric. I'll talk to people and say, oh yeah, do you play? Oh, you sell D&D stuff, and then they'll start talking about Call of Cthulhu. I'm like, well, you're talking about Call of Cthulhu, but I understand where you're coming from. It's a role playing game, and it makes sense to call everything D&D.
I still play first edition when we play fantasy. I'm hooked. I can't help it.
No, I don't play. Listen, I play Swords and Wizardry, but that's only because Swords and Wizardry is the modern rule set that plays like first edition played when we played it. Yeah. No weapon speed, no segments, no weapon versus AC adjustment. And
on the other side of it, there's no restrictions.
Right.
My character wants to climb a tree to see what's going on. Oh well, we don't have a climbing roll.
Where's your tree climbing skill? Yeah.
Wait a second. It's in the Wilderness Survival Guide. Hold on a second.
Yeah. Page flip.
Now my group, we still play second edition because we have all the books, and to us, second edition was basically house ruled 1E, and it always gets a bad rap because it has what do they call them? The little skills you have to learn. Like, oh, there's a skill for like cooking. Like, well, you don't know how to cook. Well, no, it just means you're doing something that you wouldn't normally be able to do. It
gets a rip for the splat books and the kits.
Oh well, no, that was
for the win.
And I just got mad at TSR for all of the reprint material. They're yanking $35 a book out of your pocket, and my fighter's handbook has half the reprint material from the player's handbook. And, So I never got heavily into second edition because of that. It's funny. I can play and enjoy the heck out of 3 and 3.5, but I can't write for them. My brain does not work in 3.5.
Well, Steve Winter let us in on one of the conventions. Let us on the secret of the handbooks. He said that because we said, well, why did you end up with all these crazy? You had the fighter's handbook and the thief, and you end up with these crazy classes. He goes, we never play tested any of those. we would just assign a book to somebody like, okay, you're doing the Book of Druids, and they would have to come up with this whole book, and so nothing was ever play tested. That's why the splat books are just terrible because there's no balance.
I actually stopped buying TSR product after Unearthed Arcana. Later, somebody showed me one, and I picked up a secondhand copy of Oriental Adventures, but that was it.
There's some. I was probably. We started playing about 78, so I played a lot during the second edition. There was some good stuff, Chris, but it was mostly you had to look for writers. Night Below.
The Forgotten Realm stuff was good.
some of it was good.
Stuff that I just didn't feel I needed.
The rule supplement stuff's over the top, but Night Below is a very good box set. It's by what's the guy's name? I want to say Carl Peterson. I can't remember the name. Carl Sargent. Sargent, who did some work for TSR, and he was from Warhammer. He did some kind of dark stuff, which was not very, it wasn't big in TSR back in the day. But Night Below is a good box. So there's some things that count in the 90s, but there's a lot of fluff, fluff that it's just trying to take money out of your pockets because it's the monster, right? You got to feed the monster because the perfect game is you come up with a version of it. And we're through. That's it. We did it. Okay, there you go. Play our game.
And they did stuff like Ravenloft and whatnot. Okay, I bought a Ravenloft set, but I didn't buy it because I wanted new Ravenloft rules. I bought it because I wanted the world of Ravenloft. And most folks, I find it's funny if they buy into a new role playing system, they really don't want the system. If they role play, they already have a system.
Sure.
They want your world.
I agree with you.
And there are people making fantastic worlds out there. Oh, that they added a role-playing system to, which you could just ignore. But the world is worth the price of admission, if you will.
Yeah, Dandelion. So the interesting story about Carl Sargent is, yes, he just disappeared one day, and there's a lot of stories about how that happened. But if you go on the internet, you can find some of those stories. But yes, he was a pretty prolific writer for Warhammer. He came to TSR. He did the From the Ashes reboot of Greyhawk. His stuff is very well written. His Warhammer stuff is extremely well written. His TSR stuff is extremely well written. He also wrote a couple of dungeon adventures. As you can tell, I'm a huge fan of Carl Sargent, and he literally just disappeared one day. He left. Just some people say he got in a plane and flew to England or did something, and that was it. He was out of the hobby, didn't say goodbye to anybody, just took off. And people, I think they said later he became a professor teaching something in the UK, and that was, I guess he just got fed up with the life and jumped into his Barracuda and drove off into the sunset and said, "That's it. I'm through with writing RPGs." But yeah, that was a very interesting story, the Carl Sargent story.
Chadzo just put up that they overprinted. They did, and it's funny. You remember what was it, about 89, 88, TSR started running out of money. And I mean, by 1989, there was a point in there or 88, you couldn't even get character sheet packs from your local store because TSR was releasing nothing, and because they were broke.
Right.
That's when I got to know Gary Gygax, because I looked at my then partner, the guy who was helping me with Fuzzy Heroes, was Robert Bigelow, that used to write the miniatures column in Dragon Magazine, Through the Looking Glass. And he's still around, by the way. He runs a game store. and a lot of people think it's the game store that's in KODT, but let's not go there. Anyway. So I told Bob, I said, if I'm going to write adventure modules, just because there aren't any out there, I said, nobody knows me. I said, let's see if Gary's doing anything. He knows me a little, and maybe he'll want to work with me because he's not making money right now either. So I called Gary Gygax. I called him on the phone. He said, do I know you? And I said, yeah, we played a couple games together at Gen Con. Oh, yeah, you're that little pop gun fart kid. I said, yeah, that's me. and I said, I'm writing a series of dungeon modules, which are the Challenge of Arms, Ritual of the Golden Eyes, Castle Wolfman series. And I said, I've got $400 or $500 I could throw at you. Would you write one of these modules with me? He said, yeah, as long as your check clears. And so we started writing together. And we actually got to be very good friends writing Challenge of Arms together. I'm not going to go into too much detail, so don't worry. We shared similar political viewpoints. We liked the same kind of women. We drank the same kind of booze. We smoked the same kind of cigarettes. Be that as it may, we started working together. And it was when Castle Wolfman was finishing up, but hadn't been finished yet, that he approached me with Legendary Adventure. So the reason there's a Castle Wolf Moon, but it's like some of the most famous vaporware of the industry, is because it never got finished because we shifted to Legendary Adventure instead. I am planning on, that's number 2 on my list right now, is Castle Wolf Moon. So
the Ritual of the Golden Eyes and the Wolf Moon series were interesting because I remember when they came out, you had like little picture books and stuff, which I don't know why more people didn't do those. Those were actually really.
I borrowed that from S1, from Tomb of Horrors, where they had the pages in the back.
Why did they do that more often?
I love that.
I don't know why TSR didn't do that. Yeah,
and I always thought that was the coolest thing. You want to be able to throw the pictures out in front of your players so they can see it. Now, what's really neat, Mike, is and they're actually loose leaf in those books. The pictures, okay, but the pictures you throw out for the characters don't have things like the tripwires in them, whereas the pictures you as the GM see in the book do. So they're actually slightly different pictures that you show the characters.
Nice.
And yeah, people like it. I don't know. The artwork wasn't that great back then, but it's,
Well,
it's not bad.
S3 had pictures too. I remember that was a picture
S3 had
book.
good pictures though.
But
That artwork.
I think Baltron's Beacon. There might be like 3 or 4 that had pictures, but I'm really surprised they didn't do that with more of their books because that was a really good concept. And I remember when those came out, The Ritual of the Golden Eyes, and the other one, I remember thinking, oh, this is really cool. These have pictures in them. And Gary Gygax has helped write them. Oh my gosh, who's this Chris Clark guy? I don't know.
I've already gotten Luke, Ernie, and Alex. Although I don't have Alex in the bag yet, I have to make sure that he's happy with the contract, to agree to work on Castle Wolfmoon with me, so that on the cover of Castle Wolfmoon we could put now with 300% more Gygax.
Oh, that would be.
Oh,
sweet.
that's perfect.
That is sweet.
Well, you got to have fun. If you're not having fun doing this, you're doing something wrong. So,
well, getting Alex is going to be tough because he's a big Magic card guy. I don't know because he even said, I don't really play much D&D, so you're going to have to.
Well, the neat part about Alex is he's a gearhead. So I've got a separate route to which I can worm my way into his heart, I guess. You know?
Ah, there you go.
Yeah. And he's actually a fairly talented gearhead. So, yeah. Yeah, we trade busted knuckle stories all the time. So.
Let's see. We had quite a few comments here, but man, everybody's getting crazy here.
All right, hold on a second.
It's mostly generic D&D stuff, but we'll ask Chris some of this stuff.
89 is the character sets with colon stat.
Bear in mind that during second edition, I was only doing the occasional article for Roger Moore at the Dragon. So.
Oh, really? Now I gotta go back and read my Dragon magazines.
The one that went over the best, that I liked the best, was one called Retirement Village. It's about a bunch of characters who go through dungeons and kill off all the monsters, take their stuff, get to a certain age, and build themselves a village with their loot that they've gotten from these dungeons. And all the sons and daughters of the monsters they killed showed up to give them what for. And they're all, if you look at the DMG, there's a chart for venerable age on all the races and how it hits your stats. So there's a bunch of these 25th level guys with like stats of 3 and everything, you know. and so the mage is going, fire, don't help me, it starts with a B, fire, fire, bowl. No, it's not bowl. You know, and it's just hilarious. Yeah. Just hilarious.
Yeah,
but that's
cool.
92, I want to say. Like Dungeon 92 or Dragon 92.
Somebody mentions Adventures Dark and Deep. That was the 2E that was what 2E would have been. Was that Block that did that? Yeah, Block did that. Yeah, that was interesting. I like I like a lot of the OSR type rule sets because I always find something I can use in almost any rule set. And there was some really good. I just read. Oh gosh, what's the rule set? I just read Crimson Things. And I found some really interesting rules there. I'd never read it before.
Newport, yeah.
Yeah, there's some really good rules in there that I would like to probably put into my campaign if I really had a chance. So
it's a lighter version kind of Astonishing Swordsman and Sorcerers of Hyperborea. It's built off of the Swords and Wizardry rules, so it probably feels a bit more familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, I just happened to run into it. I read it. I'd never read it before, and I was like, there's some pretty good little ideas in here. So yeah, I always get something from everything you read. I mean, I use it because I say we play second edition D&D, but really we play first edition. We use the second edition book, so it's kind of, that's the great thing about first and second edition D&D. You can just go back and forth. There's really not a lot.
You can borrow rules mechanics from anything of mine that you ever see. I have no problem with people publishing borrowed rules mechanics. Don't steal my worlds, but you can steal all the mechanics you want.
There's a YouTube video of a Gary Con panel of all the Gygaxes, except that she who will not be named. I'm best. It's kind of like Candyman. If you say the name 3 times, you'll get threatened with legal action. So I'll probably just avoid that.
Well, that used to be, like I said, it used to be Lorraine Williams, except that now she's not the villain du jour anymore. It's the other lady.
Very hated Lorraine. Oh my God,
Chris. I don't think very many people liked her at all. I know that I'm friends with Brent Dilly for a while, and I know he didn't like his sister for quite a long time. I think they've recently kind of had a whatever you call it. Yeah, they've reconciled a little bit because they're having some legal issues with the Buck Rogers, and so they've reconciled so they can. Somebody's basically trying to steal the Buck Rogers. IP from. Yeah, it's a long story. He had a post on it, but yeah, he didn't. I don't think he spoke to her for like almost 20 years. So yeah, I don't think she was very well liked pretty much anywhere, and especially after the stuff she pulled with Gary and TSR. So although I did talk to somebody, an old timer who I won't name the name, who I asked him. He worked under Lorraine. I said, "What was it like?" He said, "Well, we got paid." So we got a paycheck, and I mean, yeah.
No, it was funny. I was at Gen Con the year that the notice of what had occurred at TSR came through. It was actually called Black Sunday right there at the con. This was when it was still in Milwaukee. But have you heard about Black Sunday? What? Oh my goodness! Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. I think Gary or Eric and I talked about this before because especially me being in the hinterlands of Texas and not ever going to really big conventions or going to Gen Con back then, we never knew stuff happened. We just looked one day and all of a sudden Gary's name wasn't on books, and that's all we knew. And it wasn't until years later, that you start going to conventions, you start meeting people in the industry, especially when I got on the internet. When I first got on AOL in 92 or whatever, you start talking to people, you find out what happened all those years because we never knew what happened, until maybe like, the 90s. And that's when we're like, oh, wow, he got fired and this happened. And we didn't know all this stuff.
And if you never got to Milwaukee to Gen Con, you never witnessed one of the Nerf Wars. Early Sunday morning exhibit hall Nerf Wars, I'm telling you.
Is that when they had the big castle, right? And they would
they had the big castle, and all the TSR employees would defend the castle with Nerf guns, and the rest of us would attack. And I actually had the privilege of taking over they had the little tower that they would put like folk bands on top of and whatnot. Yeah, we actually took the tower with Margaret Weiss leading us. Yeah. And then she did the silly English Knigget speech. It was awesome. You should have been.
Wow. Yeah, unfortunately, my first Gen Con was, I don't know, 12 years ago. So yeah, unfortunately.
Oh, my first was like Gen Con 25 in 93 or 94.
Oh, you were. Well, that's way before me. Yeah. That was 2008. Yeah, 2007 or 8.
That was still Milwaukee, and. When our first cab driver found out what the hotel we were staying at and how much we got charged, actually second cab driver, how much we got charged to go from the airport to the hotel, our driver the next morning had to drive us to Gen Con. We were like 15 minutes out of central Milwaukee. He wouldn't take money from us because he goes, you already got screwed. I can't. I was like, holy shit.
I can't screw you again. You've already got screwed.
Listen, it was 3 New Yorkers sharing a hotel room. That first morning for Gen Con, streets, it was a Thursday morning, and the streets in downtown Milwaukee were empty. We still couldn't believe it. As New Yorkers, the city's insane. And there was a homeless guy digging through a garbage pail. He was looking for bottles, whatever. And he sees us and goes, "Good morning, gentlemen." I was like, where the fuck are we? It's like we're
not in New York anymore, Toto. Yeah, we're no longer in New York.
We get to the corner, and of course the lights says don't walk, and it's like we look left, we look right, and we're about to walk, and then we realize, hey, that person at that corner is waiting for the fucking light to change. What the hell? We're New Yorkers. There's no there is traffic. You still go.
No cop, no stop. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's like, what the hell? Jaywalking is a rite of passage in New York City. Here, I was like, we don't want to.
You weren't staying at the Hotel Wisconsin, were you?
I have no clue.
That's the divey one right across from the shopping mall.
You know what? It was pretty divey, and it was off some kind of strip. But yeah, it was. I think the couch in the room had like some cigarette holes in it, if I recall correctly. Yeah, it was. But listen, we were out. We were out of the room by 7:00 in the morning with just enough time to eat a quick breakfast once we got downtown. Got in for 8:00 games. Got out at midnight. Ate our dinner at midnight with at some local bar with some good beer and great burgers.
Yeah.
I don't even know which one it was. We just were like, man, the tap beer here is awesome. And nectar of the gods, as we called it. It's just like, this is what our gaming characters would be drinking. And listen, I've mentioned this before, but my highlight was Dale Slade Henson was running some Spelljammer thing in like one of the exhibit halls, whatever. And it was like it was a simple mini game, and people were coming and they were playing with the minis and trying to capture the Spelljammer ship. And I played a round or two. I got killed, and I was watching. So he goes up to me, and goes, "Hey, kid." No, I was like 25. I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "You think you can run this?" I'm like, "Huh?" Listen, I go, "Really, the secret is high roll wins. You pretend you're looking up stuff on a sheet, but whoever rolled the if you roll the highest roll, the game master wins. Otherwise, they win. There's no adjustments. No matter what they think, there's no adjustments." I'm like, "Okay, why?" I got to take a piss. I'll be back in like 10 minutes. 35, maybe 40 minutes later, he comes strolling back. In the meantime, I'm like, the whole time you're like on there, it's like somebody from TSR is going to walk by. They're going to ask me where Slade is. I'm going to be like, I don't know. You don't want to get the guy in trouble. He came back very relaxed. He must have like grabbed the smoke and whatever else. Like, all right, I got it now. It's like, wow, that was a highlight. And I go, and there's no pictures of me running it because none of my friends were nearby. No, it would have been.
Well, you
fun.
didn't have picture phones back then. You didn't. You had to have
No,
an
I couldn't
actual
have done
camera.
couldn't have done a selfie. I have pictures from the convention, but nothing really from. Not too many. I got some pictures with the guys from Palladium. It's when we picked up riffs and had everybody sign our books.
That's when Kevin still came in person to every Gen Con too.
Yeah, he saw. Yeah, Kevin signed. Ciambita signed it. Kevin Long signed it, and a few others signed our books. And I was like, wow. It's so big, I don't think you could get anybody to sign anything.
So, Chris, we asked Alan Hammock this question last night. So, he also went to some of the early Gen Cons. You went to some of the early Gen Cons. What's the biggest difference besides, the obvious? I mean, people that are attending. What's the biggest difference between now and then when you attend a big convention like a Gen Con?
Now it's much more commercial. Every foot you walk in the exhibit hall, in even in just the con, somebody's trying to sell you something at Gen Con. It's wall-to-wall people. Everybody's in a hurry to get to their event because they paid money for it, and it's less colloquial, which in some ways, if you're a wonderfully sophisticated person with extreme taste, you probably prefer. I don't. I liked it when it was a little more friendly. And don't get me wrong. The last couple of Gen Cons, I know their numbers differ, but there was like 30,000 people in Milwaukee because there was never anywhere to park. Mm-hmm. There was never a hotel room to get, but it was colloquial. Okay, funny story. Second to last Gen Con in Milwaukee, I had come out with a game called Sports Fuzz, which, by the way, it's like Fuzzy Heroes, but you play football with it. Because the guys were always like, "You should write Bud Bowl rules, dude." So, okay, you could play it with beer bottles. Just put helmets on them; it'll work. It's fine. Anyway, so they come to play this event, and they had come for 2 years because the game was now 2 years old, and they brought cheerleaders to a Sports Fuzz event in little cheerleader outfits with pom poms, and nobody thought anything of this open air event being run with pom pom girls. That I didn't even know were going to be there, but I said, "Hey, it sounds good to me." It was just in many ways it was just a little bit more friendly, and that's not to say that Gen Con isn't friendly. It's just not as friendly.
Right. Yeah, I think Eric and I would agree with you. Eric and I are real big proponents of smaller cons, and that's why we we cut our list down to pretty much TotalCon and GaryCon and Game Hole and North Texas.
Con, for God's sakes, You think North Texas is a little bit more friendly than Gen Con? Oh, it's night and day. Yeah. It's like the difference between going camping and going to Dork County out here. Dork County for you guys is what's the mountain range? The Appalachians up there? Where there's a vendor every 5 feet that wants to sell you, pull your own amethyst out of the mine or something. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Let's just go enjoy nature.
I think that's really cool though, because I know when so when we started North Texas, I was looking for because we wanted to do old school games. So I was looking for cons that had old school track. The only one I could find was TotalCon. There was no other. I looked at every con in the United States. The only con, except for Gen Con, obviously, or Origins, the only cons that had any old school track was TotalCon. And they were running games by Frank Menzer. He had his own little room where he ran games, but other than that, there was nothing like what we wanted to do. And I'm so happy now that we have a lot more choices. We've got a lot of little cons that have popped up.
In the early '90s, there was QuadCon. they didn't have any money to bring out like a Frank Mincer or a Tin Cask, of course. So you didn't see that kind of advertising.
Uh-huh.
Right. QuadCon, TwinCon was an old school con. And then downstate, GalathricCon, which of course was originally started around the Living City people. What was the league called? The Adventurers League, except it wasn't called Adventurers League under original TSR.
RPGA.
RPGA. Yeah, it was a big RPGA event.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, GalathricCon, I'm pretty sure has since died a hideous death a decade and a half ago.
Wow.
Just the lack of interest.
Yeah, Michael Gross. ShireCon's also, that's a great con run by Tom Wilson that eventually I'm going to make it there someday because we had plans to go to AppleCon last year until COVID. My wife and I were ready to fly to AppleCon and see Lloyd and them, and then that fell through. But I told Tom is if he ever makes ShireCon more than one day, I'll go see it because I can't justify the long trip for just a 1 day con.
I'd like to get out.
You can visit New York, stay with Tenkar.
Yeah, New York, yeah, whatever. I see that's TV shows.
Then you get a ride to the con. Come on, I'll show you my old beat in the South Bronx in the late.
Now that would be fun. I would do that. I want to see Fort Apache.
Don't invite me out unless the car needs work.
I will show you the precinct where they filmed the outdoor scenes, the precinct they shot the indoor scenes, the actual Fort Apache, and the new building for Fort Apache, which was run down and broken 2 years after they built it when I got there in late '97.
Oh, I love that movie. Paul Newman, right? It's Paul Newman.
That was Paul Newman. He did a great job.
Love that movie. I love that movie. Yeah.
You know, and
that's what I thought New York was. I was like, man, New York is it's just like animals, man. It's wild. I mean, that's what New York is. And between that, that Marvel Comics, I thought there was just the play was blowing up every weekend because in
a large part it was. I remember with my family going to the Poconos as a kid, and you drive the Cross Bronx Expressway, and all you would see was buildings with tenement buildings with windows that were either cemented up or boarded up with fake windows painted on them. All these tenements were burned out.
My God!
And it was like, and it was like driving. My father was driving. I think it was a '73 Chevy Capri, which always had engine problems. It's like, don't break down, not here, don't break down. So of course, when I get at the police academy in March of '97, they sent me to the one location, the one area that I didn't want to go to, the Bronx, or as we figured it out when I saw the map. It was actually the asshole of the Bronx, the 4-2, because it was.
I'll beat around the bush, Eric. Say what you feel.
Yeah, it was right there, and it's like, oh, nice. And I was getting oriented in the command the second day in the Bronx. The training sergeant's like, just so you know, we're number 2 in the city for homicides, and we're number 2 in the city for shootings.
Oh boy!
And this corner, 163 and Boston Road, last week had 4 people shot, 1 on each of the 4 corners. That was the first time for this precinct. I was like, oh my God!
That's called a pattern of shootings. Oh no!
Yes, yeah, and it's like, oh, and they shot some of the scenes for Fort Apache in this very command, including the storming of the precinct was this precinct. It's like, okay, thank you. It was great. In the end, it was great. It was a great area to work, and the people, the neighborhood actually was good people because you deal with the crap, but the people that live there and were lifelong residents were good people. So you actually felt appreciated. I can't say about cops these days they feel appreciated, but we felt appreciated back then. There was,
So I want to get up to Lloyd's Con for the exact opposite reason, though, because I hear there's a lot of nature up there where there aren't shootings of any kind, other than
no. What kind of nature? What kind of nature is that? Actually, with Lloyd, I had Lloyd on the show. We were talking, and apparently the owners of the bed and breakfast, whatever it was that he had the con at, sold. So he doesn't know if the incoming management company or owners are going to be as understanding as to what a convention is, and let alone an old school gaming convention like
up there in Maine, they have a peculiar way of doing things.
Yes. You can't get there from here.
They can't get there from here.
So it's going to be interesting. And I would love to see, ShireCon and AppleCon kind of morph into a big regional con in that time frame, but who knows?
We had supported ShoreCon before. I hadn't heard of Total Confusion before until I was with Eldritch, and they always got invited. And yeah, and it's we'd love to have you out, Chris, but you're not the big draw. These guys, I understand. It's no big deal. You're not hurt. You're not hurt. No, I'm fine. Well, can you send some product for them? No, they're irresponsible. Oh, okay.
God love them, but yeah, that was hilarious. I remember Doug was like, "What the hell?" These guys like, I don't know. It's like they didn't bring any of their product to sell at North Texas. Like, I don't know. Luckily, Doug had bought some copies and stuff, or you had sent it to him, Chris. I can't remember one or the other.
Oh,
so we actually had some
there were
stuff
several people who were involved with the company, and I made sure that every year they got a stack of everything that came out from the company. Every version, at least one of every version of everything that we did.
Yeah, Doug's got a stack back here.
What's right, you know.
Doug has the stack back there. Doug was actually one of the investors for Eldritch,
yes.
If I remember correctly. So yeah.
Well, and the others will remain nameless because I didn't know whether they wanted to be known for that or not.
Yeah,
but anybody who had money involved got a stack because that's the least you should be able to expect.
Sure. Oh, I agree. Yeah. So. And then there was some good product there too. I guess it just wasn't enough product. I mean, we don't have to get into the whole.
Well, I know I wrote a lot of it, so it was.
Yeah, there was some really good product there. I think and Eric, I've talked about this. I think one of the things that kind of held Eldritch back was the not adapting a rule system and doing the percentage thing, because I remember people looking at that and getting like, oh, I don't. What system is this? Well, it's not really it's its own system. It's not D&D or 1E or Ostrich or Swords of Wizardry.
It's pretty close to first edition, but yeah.
I think a lot of people dipped out when they saw it was just, oh, well, this is something I don't. It's a percentage system.
Believe it or not, it's the old inner city role playing system. Yeah. You remember when you first heard about Defensive Class was third edition, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nope. Inner City has Defensive Class from 1978. Now, I didn't think it was a big deal. My friends were not good at math. They couldn't say Armor Class 4. Okay, so that's 20 minus 4. I need a 16. Okay. So I just said, no, it's Defensive Class 16. Don't worry about it. And it just seemed like, let's cut one set of math out and they'll be able to deal with it. But, and honestly, I've never been hauled on the carpet by Hasbro for using their Defensive Class, so I'm pretty sure they understand too.
True confession, I never even realized that you could figure out the AC in your head for like 3 years. I was like, 3 years. I think I must have turned like 16 and went, oh, wait a second.
It all clicked.
It all clicked. Oh, AC 0 is 20, then it means AC 1 is 19. Oh,
it's okay, Eric. We still love you.
Oh, well,
just be careful, okay? Yeah, all right.
Yeah, well, listen, I can't help it. Math. I was actually good at math, but sometimes the obvious kind of just escapes you. And I was too interested in learning every magic item and artifact in the DMG.
You were too busy looking for munchkin holes. Admit it.
No.
If I get this item, I always win. Like that.
I was almost always the DM because my players did not trust anybody else but me to DM. They could any other game system, Rivs, my friend Dave, but that was fine. But no, we're gonna play D&D. Hey, Eric, you're the DM. I want to be a player one time. No, you can't. What do you mean, but he can't? No. You have D&D. That is you. I was like, okay.
What's up, man?
It's past my bedtime.
You can come on camera for just a second.
Okay. I didn't want to interfere, but
hello.
Hey.
Now, I want. If you write your own system, Mike, gorgeous-looking women will come up and just kiss on you and stuff all the time.
Wow. Okay. Well, I guess my two ideas are going to start coming out really quick. Then I need to get rolling. Oh well, Michael Gross has talked about here the dangerous journeys So yeah, I don't think a lot of people know that TSR did not win that lawsuit.
No.
That was merely just to destroy Gary and destroy
Yes.
Dangerous Journeys. They actually lost the lawsuit, but it didn't matter. The cost took down GDW, it took down everything.
Right.
Frank had alluded years past that I think TSR cut them a check at the end, he and Gary, but it didn't matter. The company was gone.
It was doomed.
Yeah.
I had the original. I had Dangerous Dimensions for my original book that I got. I forget the core book, whatever. But then when I went to buy something else for it, and it's like, oh, it's Dangerous Journeys now. And again, we didn't know why. It wasn't like now we look up. It's on the internet. It's on your gaming forums. It's on your blogs. It's on YouTube. We didn't know why.
Yeah, well, and they couldn't get it out. They were so wrapped up with the court case, they couldn't even get product out to stores.
I know, it's too. And it's nothing like D&D either. You read it. It's nothing like D&D. It's not at all. But the problem is, and this is actually better now, is that the courts weren't sophisticated enough to realize the differences between role playing games. And it's kind of what was the Battlestar Galactica lawsuit that was actually a lousy lawsuit too, because they said, well, it's a ripoff of Star Wars, but that's every science fiction movie ever made.
Oh, look, it's got a spaceship in it.
Yeah, there's a spaceship in it. Oh my gosh, it must be Star Wars, and that was a bullshit lawsuit too, because it wasn't. It was nothing like Star Wars, absolutely nothing, except it had spaceships. So yeah, that's the unfortunately the Dangerous Journey thing. Was just the thing. Basically just money whipped the company to going under, which is really unfortunate. But
Frank, Gary didn't even like talking about Dangerous Journeys.
Yeah,
that was a topic you did not mention in his presence, because he would get very sad and very tired very quickly.
It would make me very angry if somebody just killed my company just to kill my company. That would actually, yes, make me very angry.
But we'd be on his porch and we'd be talking to be like, I wanted to ask you something about DJ, Gary. Wait a minute, 2:00. What? Look at that. Blue bikini, brunette.
We're not talking DJ. We're not talking.
Yeah, come on, be subtle, dude. Don't be a hog. Come on. that was our average business meeting on Gary's porch. Well, and LA was very different too. LA was much more investigative than it was combat oriented, which I enjoyed. I used to tell people, Legendary Adventure was about what you could do rather than what you could kill. Right. But it was hard to find people to write adventures for it, because you had to get out of go kill the monster and take its stuff mindset, even if the monster really needed killing.
I had some friends who were very huge fans of Legendary Adventures, and they were really sorry to see it go, because I actually never played it, so I don't know how the game ran, but yeah, I had some friends who were huge fans of that.
Wait a minute. There we go. This was the handy book. Okay.
There you go. Yeah.
Yep.
I have 3 shelves up here of all the different crap I've been involved in over the years. Oh, and thankfully, I have good stud walls, so they aren't going to come down anytime soon.
Hopefully, it won't
Chris gets killed live on YouTube.
Yeah, so you see my tummy. Which is why we like the snow out here. I need to shovel more. I do. Yeah.
No, it's okay. I just like just enough snow so I can throw salt down and then watch it go away. Or I want it to be so cold and the snow is so dry it blows away. But
except you can't ski on that snow.
No,
when it's too powdery, you can't ski on it. So,
but I don't ski because I don't skate. Oh,
yeah, I don't want to
actually put skis on his barracuda.
I want to be able to listen to my music while I'm skiing. I mean, yeah.
No, sir. No, sir.
I want to live on a beach and never see a snowflake ever again in my life. No cold. The older you get, the cold just kills me now. I don't know about you, Chris, but the cold just gets me. I don't know.
I crackle a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. It used to not suck the energy out of me like it does, but now it gets cold. And the only thing I can think about is warm. So yes, I told it. So someday we're going to have, my wife and I are retiring to South Padre Island in a few years when we get, things taken care of. I have a lot of relatives down there, and there is a convention center on South Padre Island that's rarely used because most of the conventions happen during the summer months. So I promise you, when I move down to South Padre Island, we are going to have South Padre Island Con, and everybody here is invited.
Just call it No Snow Con.
No Snow Con.
No snow con.
They do have an anime. They have an anime con there every year, and I want to say they have a game, like a toy con there, and that's probably. And then they have one year we were there. They were having a movie con. Well, not actually a movie con. It was a movie thing, and they had like the director of Twilight. They had some luminaries there. But I don't think they've ever had a real life D&D convention there. So that's my goal when I retire. Is I'm going to go down there. We're going to have Beach Con or whatever. We'll call it something fun, South Padre Con or Beach Con, or like you say, No Snow Con. That'll probably be the perfect name.
Yeah.
And David, I understand. Believe me, we have things on standby out here that are called plows. So as much as yes, we get a lot of snow, we're kind of set up for it. It's okay. Yeah, the snow drifts on either side of my driveway, Mike, are now so high from shoveling. I can't throw the snow over the top anymore. We have to get it to the end of the driveway and pitch it in the ditch.
How long does it take to melt? Like a month? I mean, I don't get that. That's crazy.
It forms it forms a glacier in my driveway and like takes the grass off the side of my hill.
No. Not doing that. Nope.
Yeah.
No.
See, I like New York City. We get snow, and then usually within like 2 days, you got that dirty New York City dog piss snow, and then and then most of the time you warm up enough that it's pretty much gone within mostly gone within like a week. We still have remnants of the 20 inches that we got, but that's only because we got more snow and then kind of went away, and then more snow and it kind of went. Today we're getting, I think, by tomorrow morning we'll have like another 6-7 inches.
Oh.
But then the weekend's going to be in the 40s. So yeah,
it's going to be 70 degrees here in a week. Believe it or not, it's crazy. This was such a crazy week for Texas. It just. My relative South Padre Island, it was 29 degrees down there. My aunt lost all her lemon trees, her lime tree, and her avocado tree because it never ever gets that cold down there. It's crazy weather here for Texas. So I am not, man. I appreciate what y'all have to go through up there, but I nope. That's a big nope. Ever moving up there?
Not gonna do it now. Not gonna.
I'll go up north of that. I've always said I wanted to visit Wisconsin during the summer because I've only been there in February, March, or October, November for the two cons. And it's beautiful. It's so beautiful there. I'd love to visit in the summer.
Yeah, it's a little bit cooler than Texas, and an unbelievable degree greater humidity. Yeah.
But I'm sure it's beautiful though because you have all the water there and all the lakes and stuff. It's got to be really gorgeous in the summer.
You're welcome to visit anytime, Mike. I have a 3-wheel golf cart that does about 28 miles an hour and it's really dangerous because it's only got 3 wheels.
Ooh.
Yeah, you can roll it really easy.
I've told my wife we're going to make that trip because it's a really beautiful trip too, driving it. So I promised my wife in the future we will go to Wisconsin this summer. I would love to see it this summer. So yeah, we'll visit y'all when we get up there.
Crossing the state line, visit everybody. I hope they have indoor plumbing.
Well, so when I come there, I don't cross. I hate Illinois, so I don't go through Illinois. I go Iowa, then just straight right. I try to stay out of Illinois if I can. So I
don't know. 94 it's a great racetrack.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to die in a car wreck, people drive like maniacs. But
my best time from O'Hare to my front door, which is right near the state line in those days, 18 minutes.
Oh my God! How did you do that? 18 minutes?
Did it in the Z28 Camaro?
120? Oh, jeez. Oh no.
Yeah. 18 minutes. I think the average speed we figured was about 107.
Yeah, I'm about to say I don't know how you do that in 18 minutes.
Not anymore. You don't.
Oh, okay.
Not anymore. Yeah, this was back when I lived in Illinois. So.
Okay, there you go. Oh, okay, good.
We're beyond the statute of limitations, so it's not like I ran for reckless driving, like when I did 110 on the Long Island Expressway.
So yeah, that car has become a small cube of steel and gotten remelted into something. Believe me.
Oh, all right. So there's no evidence left either.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
You covered it. You covered all the tracks.
And then suddenly on YouTube, oh no, here's the video. Oh.
Here's the video. We dug through our archives, and somebody had an old Betamax camcorder. Look at this.
Oh boy.
Our facial recognition software says that person giving the finger to the police is you.
How can you tell? I was so much younger.
It's funny. Do you ever hear the stories, though, about the Bears racing to the bubble? They had that a couple years they couldn't train at Soldier Field because they were renovating. And so they had this bubble outside in, oh, gosh, I want to say right off Willow Road. So like Libertyville area. They had this big inflated bubble that they practiced in. These guys would race between Chicago and the Willow Road exit, which is about 40 miles north to where the bubble was. And I actually wound up racing with them home from work once or twice. And they were a fun group. Yeah. I glanced over at who's in the Ferrari next to me, and son of a gun, it's Sweetness in his Ferrari. And it's like, oh my God, I got to nail the gas now,
Come on, Peyton. Let's see what you got, bro.
Yeah. And it was Peyton in a Ferrari.
Oh man,
racing to the bubble, and you had to remind yourself to slow down after Willow Road, because if you were on your own, the cops would pull you over. But anyway, the good old days.
Well, that is one of the great things about Texas. If you want to run, shall we say, break the speed limit. There's a lot of roads on Texas where there's nothing. I mean, especially West Texas, and there's a lot of gearheads that they might be known to take their cars out there and drive really, really fast because it's flat too. A lot of it's flat. Once you get past the hill country, it's flat. And so, yes, some of the sheriffs that come to our con every year from West Texas, they often pull over gentlemen going 120 to 140 miles an hour because they're just,
I, of course, am totally within the speed limit now because I'm older, Mike, older and wiser, or something.
Well, your reaction time goes down, right? I mean, that's the big thing is you don't want,
I'm not so sure. I'm pretty sure, if I can use a race term, I'm pretty sure I could still pull a 0.5 bulb on the tree coming down. So, yeah. Although it's funny, did I show you? Have you guys seen on any of the Facebook postings? I had a picture of my mantelpiece up for Christmas. It's got a bunch of trophies on it. That's under my personal Facebook page. Anyway.
Oh, I don't have
a bunch of trophies on it. Those aren't my drag racing trophies. They're my wife's.
Nice.
Oh, great.
Did you get done building my race car yet? I need to go racing. Yes, dear. Please don't hit me again.
I never got that much into drag racing because it's so much build up. It's like eating eating crayfish. It's so much build up for so little payoff because it's all over so quick. You're just
well, and the quicker it's over, the better you did. Yeah, that's true.
So,
but, there's a lot of little tricks to learn, though.
No, I mean you can tell. Yeah, I know that. I wouldn't want to do it. 'Cause I've seen some blowouts too, and yikes, that is not something you want to happen when you're going that fast at that short track.
She won all of her racing trophies driving a 1967 Chrysler New Yorker land yacht with one-wheel drive. And she would slam the doors on a quarter mile at 104 miles an hour.
Oh my gosh!
In this 3-ton land yacht, and we did it because we would get a new set of tires under warranty every year. I don't know. These tires are all torn up, man. They're under warranty.
That was never using the commercial for those cars, right? They say great on the drag race track.
Well, yeah,
things really haul ass.
The New Yorker, it's this big, huge, ugly square box land yacht thing that weighs about 6,800 pounds. But engines back then, they weren't built for gas mileage. They were, built to basically make everyone think the world was coming to an end when you hit the gas. So, yeah. Anyway, how late do you go on these things, Eric? I'm needing my coffee.
We're about through. We'll pimp your. We're going to pimp your Kickstarter before we leave here.
Oh, I love you for that.
Intercity Redo. Eric and I backed it. Just put, if you want to look, just put Intercity Kickstarter on Google, and boom, it will pop up. And it's very close to funding. It should fund pretty quick here. It's got another 3 weeks, but definitely, it's a 70s. Cops and robbers type game. If you love shows like Mannix and Starsky and Hutch and things like that, seems like it's going to be really fun fun game. It's actually Christopher's first game, and it's been worked on for the last 40 years until it's just perfect now, right?
We might have taken some time off from here to there, but yeah,
just a wee bit.
a little bit.
Mike back to 28, back to 24. 24 gives you the PDF, and in addition to the Dead Tree version. And I am very partial to having both, so I can read at my desk and I can read in my bed. And I keep great job to play.
If you become a fan and you're just going to play the game, why do I need the full book? With the PDF, when you steal a 3-ton land yacht, right? You'll know when the encounter walks out into the street by looking him up in the book how much experience he's worth and whether or not it's worth getting a crime to run him down. Because sometimes it's not.
Oh my!
Sometimes it's not worth it to do the crime, just to get the experience.
I think my grandkids would love this game. It's
rare. Usually, it's worth it.
And
if you can't do the crime, don't do the crime.
As Brent would
do
say,
it. Yeah. Yes.
Well, and also you're running 2 games Saturday, correct, Chris?
Yes.
At TotalCon
actually,
online.
I think I have a Friday and a Saturday of Inner City, if I remember correctly, and then I have another one of my micro games. Stripey Hole is running in the opposite slots, so I actually have 2 different games running in the other slots on Friday and Saturday.
Yep.
And then in a week, we're also running one at the Furiously Eclectic Forums, and then of course in March we're running them at GaryCon.
There we go. And then so you could still sign up for TotalCon online. Just go to tabletop events and you haven't missed too much because it just started today. So you still have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Join the 50 Crimes Club with us.
Yes.
Once you get 50 crimes, every cop in the street knows you're a criminal and will arrest you. So, yeah.
But they'll shoot at you, but they probably won't hit you with a gun. Is the problem.
Right. You know, it's funny. They want to take you in, but when they take you in front of the judge, you'll be like, "Where's the $5,000 I had and like my clothing and my car and my gear?" And the cop will look dead into the eyes of the judge and say, "Honestly, Judge, he was naked when I found him."
Yeah. I think Eric did that a few times, but
wait, no, did I deal with naked people? Yes, and they were naked when I found them, but they were never arrested. They were always sight. It's like, hey, we got a naked crackhead running down the street. Oh, she called emergency service. They tased her, and she jumped over a patrol car like a gazelle. And she's still running down the street.
And there's probably a game mechanic for that in Inner City Redo. I bet you.
I'd love to see that because folks, you can add it in yourself. I will say this: in the late '90s, if you were on the right crack, you could, like a gazelle, vault a patrol car naked and outrun a half dozen cops.
It's possible. That's the other. You can put 5 people and 17 bags of groceries in a Corvette in this game. So it's Hollywood, baby. It's Hollywood.
Oh, man, I can't wait to get this. This is going to be great.
It's paper bags and the ones that will rip when you pick them up. Even on the TV shows, they would show you that. Every time.
And they're filled with grenades, of course. So that when they do rip, it adds just a little more excitement to the game. Yeah.
Grenades and milk. Everybody.
The occasional pumpkin. Maybe a watermelon.
Yeah. Maybe only if we want to really make it break quickly.
Well, Chris, we loved having you on tonight. I'm sorry, Eric, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. I was riffing off Chris.
Okay. Well, we like to riff off Chris.
You can riff me all the time. Yeah.
Just keep riffing, man. Riff.
No. It's fine.
I wanted Chris to get his coffee. He looks like he's getting a little antsy there.
I don't want Chris passing out, and I don't want Mike disappearing because he'll take a bio break at some point.
I'm out too. So I got issues.
Cow.
I'm out of everything.
Well, you notice he didn't offer us a beer the whole time. He just had his little artois.
There we go.
Well, Woo! I didn't offer because it was hop water. It might for my refill. Nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, it's hop water. It's the non-alcoholic way to get nothing.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So it made the Miller Lite seem like it was a real beer in comparison. What can I tell you? And I didn't put a splash of lime in my Miller Lite to make it seem like a highfalutin beer. I should do that next time.
Most of those are usually compared to making love in a canoe. And I'm not going to explain that other than saying it's something close to water.
Oh boy.
Yeah. All right. I'll accept that. You got to
But
make
check
do
the
with
mailbox
what you
in the
have.
morning because I have dogs and there will be a bag in there for you. Okay, no.
Oh well.
Chris,
I know.
you're
Eric never gets even. He gets one every.
no. Chris is bad man. You're a bad man, but we like you anyhow.
Silver
But
tongued devil.
You're a bad man. Funny man, bad man. Folks, as Mike said, thanks to Chris for joining us. Thanks to TotalCon for allowing us to do this in the support of TotalCon. We really appreciate it.
And we'll see you tomorrow night. And tomorrow night's going to be a gangbang of sorts. Hold on.
Wait. Now you're going to say that it's like a rooster festival.
Yeah,
there's going to be
it's a hot dog eating contest.
Yeah,
it's not eating.
There you go.
No.
It's just a hot dog. Yeah. No.
Mike's unofficial role tomorrow is Mike gets the banhammer or the shut up Glenn.
Nice.
So you will have the authority.
So yeah, we're gonna have, it's gonna be me, Eric, Joe the lawyer, and Glenn, and the object is to keep Glenn from talking the entire time. No, I'm just kidding, Glenn. I love you. But it's really true though.
But listen, we'll also put out a call if anybody wants to drop in. I'm gonna be like just ping me on Facebook. I'll send you a link. Drop on in. So we might even pull in people like
we may have
Mike
Jim
Rose
Walker drop in because he couldn't make it tonight. He was in Skeeter's stupid small publishing bullshit seminar, but he said he might. So we might get Jim to drop in tomorrow. I know Saturday we have Zach Glazer, which is we saved that for the last, not because it's the best, because we just want to get So hopefully you'll all be doing something Saturday and you won't be listening because really we don't care about Zach.
We don't care if you don't like Zach, but you should like us.
Yes.
Because come for us. That sounds bad. It's all conversation. In any case, join us.
Oh no. Where's my whiskey?
Right. Oh geez. Folks, as I tell you pretty much every time I do one of these, nobody in this room is a medical professional. I'm going to say, use your common sense in the world of COVID. You wouldn't throw a fireball into a 10 by 10 room, or so I've been told numerous times. After you've thrown it, if I knew there was blowback, I wouldn't throw it into a 10 by 10 room. Use your common sense. All right, that's all I'm saying. Be safe, be well. God bless. Roll those dice. And Mike and I will be back tomorrow for more hygiene.
Tomorrow night, yes.
And I'm sure we'll bring Chris back again because you can never have enough Chris.
Tell my wife that. Oh no, never mind.
And with that, go with God because that's a blessing.
Later, everybody.